Hello and welcome everybody, it's Matt from Quad Brothers. I've got the bracketing system, it's here! Introducing the Commander Brackets Beta. I've browsed through the article, have not read all of it in entirety. It's interesting, we'll talk about it. Yeah, so the first paragraph here is just basically just going over that they're excited to share the new bracket system that they put together with the Commander format panel. This is mainly just to kind of describe like what your power level is of your deck. Gives you some guidelines. So number one, I expect for many people who play Commander, nothing will change. You can continue to play with friends as you has always have without digging into the system. Yeah, basically, if you're at home, none of this is gonna matter. This is mainly for like if you're at like a convention or a card shop and you're looking for a public game. This is kind of the same as like what's your power level in the 1 through 10. This kind of gives you a bit more meat to look into to describe your deck. Yeah, so, and that's totally fine. Tons of regular play groups have figured out that what works well for them, which is great. Yeah, my play group at home, we don't have power levels. We don't even talk about what deck we want to play or how powerful we build them. We just play the decks and whatever happens, happens. If a deck gets too out of hand, we will mention it, or if a card seems too powerful. Like, we don't play like Thassa's Oracle or anything like that, so... That's kind of like, we have like it's rule zero basically. We don't like bracket or power level our decks at all. So, however, as Commander has grown and become a figure at the game store and a fixture at the game store and big events, we want to create a common language that is helpful for players or people to find well-paired games. Again, trying to make the random player experience better. I'm sure many of you had the experience of sitting down to play a game and quickly find out that the decks are operating at extremely different power levels. I would think of this system as replacing the power level scale with something more useful. It's a tool to help you find Commander games you enjoy. One thing the Commander has lacked is a good way to discuss what kind of game you want to play, and this helps provide additional terminology. The Rule 0 still exists, and you're welcome to say, hey, I'm bracket 2 except, and then insert Rule 0 thing. Having that conversation is great, of course. Number 2, the system, nor any rule system, cannot stop bad actors. There's basically stating that, you know, this is only a guideline. People don't have to follow it. They could lie. It is what it is. Number 3, we want to stress this is a beta test. They're going to be doing it at the... there's actually a Magic Discord which I just joined, and they're going to be testing it out at a play area in a portion of the command zone. It's a designated area at MagicCon Chicago. There's going to be Commander format panels and Wizard staff that'll be stopping by to check out what you guys think. Probably ask for feedback and stuff like that, so that'll be cool. With those 3 points out of the way, so the Commander brackets. So there are 5 Commander brackets. Each one is there's really 4, but we'll get to that. There are 5 Commander brackets. Each one is meant to classify a different kind of game experience. Brackets 1, 2, and 3 are different levels of socially focused play. Brackets 4 and 5 are focused on higher power or even competitive experience. In each bracket description, you'll also find guidance around 4 kinds of effects that can really impact games. 2-card infinite combos, extra turns, mass land removal, and tutors. For things other than lands, noting where and how you should expect to see them. For a bit of additional information around mass land denial, this category of cards most players find frustrating, so I emphasize it up front. You should not expect to see those cards anywhere in brackets 1 through 3. These cards regularly destroy, exile, bounce lands, keep lands tapped, Blood Moon, Armageddon, Ruination, etc. Basically, any cards that are common play that mess with several people's lands or mana they produce should not be in your deck if you're seeking to play at brackets 1 through 3. Honestly, that makes sense. All of that makes sense. Additionally, you'll see some references to the Game Changers list. This is a small set of list of cards that we'll share at the end of the bracket. These brackets to refer to cards that are targeted at higher bracket play. Most of the cards in the bracket we'll get to they do make sense. One of them, I'm not sure. I'd like to know what you guys think in the comment section. We'll get to it. So here's the bracket system. So I'm going to open this in a new tab, and then we'll open this. Yeah, so here we go. So, number 1, Exhibition. Your ultra casual Commander deck. You have no mass land denial or extra turns. You have no infinite card combos and no game changers. And you have very few tutors. It makes sense. Most of the precons nowadays, they come with a couple tutors that are like pretty bad. Like, I'd actually have to look at the deck list, but they come with some kind of tutor, like maybe it's like a dragon tutor, for instance, something like that. Very like specific niche tutors. And I don't know of any Commander decks that are precons that come with any kind of a land denial or extra turns. There might be one extra turn card, but it's not like multiple. You might just have one. Also, I'm pretty sure none of them have any kind of 2 infinite card combos. And then the Game Changers card, I don't know. There's not enough on the list, to be honest, to like make that true. Like, I could definitely build a very powerful level 1 deck given like the very minor restrictions that I see. Something like a Simic Tatayova deck could be considered a 1, but that is going to be a very powerful 1. So number 2, the average current pre-constructed deck. So what they're saying, that's another thing. I'm fairly certain that given the restrictions they've given, I'm fairly certain that I can build a 1 by their guidelines and stomp any precon. Like, that's like I said, a Tatayova Simic landfall deck. You can build for super cheap and be very powerful under their guidelines. That would probably rival level 3 and 4 decks. But you know, again, this is just a guideline. Then they gotta beta test it out and whatnot. So yeah, no, this all the same thing as before. No last man denial, no extra turns, no 2-card infinite combos, no game changers, and a few tutors. There's not much difference between 1 and 2 besides the average pre-constructed deck, which is kind of the guidelines they probably use when they're making the pre-constructed decks. They're not designed to be like broken OP. They're mainly designed to be thematic and a good way to like get you into whatever set you're looking into. Number 3 bracket is going to be your upgraded beyond the strength of an average precon deck. So you'll have no mass land denial, no chaining of extra turns, late 2-card infinite combos. I'm guessing they're probably talking about something like a Bloodletter of Aclazotz and what is that enchantment? The one where like whenever you gain life, your opponents lose life, and then whenever you lose life, you gain life. Those kind of combos. There's like 2 enchantments that do it, and then like Bloodletter does it. I'm guessing those like the 2 infinite card combos they're talking about. But again, I really feel like that probably shouldn't even be in 3. I think that really they should probably move the late game 2 infinite card combos to 4, in my opinion. The 3 game changers, there's such little cards on that list. I think that's fine. Most of the ones on that list are very powerful, so it makes sense to limit number 3 to 3. That seems fine to me. Number 4, higher power commander. It's time to go wild. So this is basically just no holds bar. You basically can do whatever you want. You have no restrictions other than whatever's on the ban list. And then number 5, and I'm not really going into any detail about 4 because number 4 and 5 are fairly similar, but there is a big difference. You'll notice that there's nothing, well, we'll talk about 5 is EDH. High power with very competitive and metagame focused mindset. No restrictions other than the ban list. So at first glance, they do look very similar in like what there's no difference in the restrictions of cards themselves. There's no like definitive thing of whether your deck's a 4 or 5. But like a general rule of thumb in my head, I think if you have to ask if your deck is a 4 or a 5, then it's not a 5. No, 5s are like you went to a CEDH tournament deck list of like the top 8, and you've like looked at you're like going deep into finding the perfect pro tour in quotations. There are tournaments for CEDH, by the way. But they're not like a pro tour. They're not sanctioned. But there are tournament listings you can go and find these powerful decks that are designed to win on turns 1, 2, or 3. Like that is like their goal. Their goal is to win 1, 2, or 3. That's probably something they should put in CDH. Maybe at the bottom underneath the dash where it says no restrictions. Maybe add something along the lines of like attempting to win before turn 3. Most optimized powerful commander decks don't try to win on turn 3. They can, but that's not like the design. CDH is all about trying to combo out or win before, or combo and win before turn 3, typically. Sometimes even turns 1 or 2. So that's kind of the distinction that I see between 4 and 5. It's a bit ambiguous, but at the same time, I understand it. I think that new players may not. They may see number 4 and 5 and they go, well, I don't know. There's no difference. There's nothing to differentiate between the two. And I think it's probably going to be up to the community kind of like explain to them what that means. But I will say this bracket, this diagram that we're looking at, this graph, whatever you want to call this image that we're looking at, it doesn't explain it, but it does explain it in the article, kind of what I just went over. I'm not going to bother going through any of this, but I want to focus mainly on 4 and 5, because like 1, 2, and 3 are fairly common. Like they kind of just go over it. It's fine. But yeah, optimize number 4. Time to go wild. To bring out your strongest deck and cards, you can expect to see explosive starts, strong tutors, cheap combos at end games, mass land destruction, or decks full of cards off the Game Changers list. This is a high-powered commander, and games have potential to end quickly. I don't know if I 100%. I mean, I guess it depends on what their definition of quickly is. If it's ending by turns like 4 through 7, then I would consider that quick for a bracket 4 in my head. One thing that they probably could have done better is like maybe dictate turns. Like I said, like I think CDH should be dictated on like trying to win before turn 3. That should be fairly simple for them to add that, and they might. The focus here on bringing the best version of the deck you want to play, but not one built around a tournament metagame. See, this is a bit ambiguous as well, because like there are tournaments for it, but I bet you a lot of people don't even know that there are CDH tournaments fairly regularly. So I don't know that like, and I guess if you're a really good deck builder, there's a chance. It's a very small chance. I actually think that only like 1% of players or less are going to be considered a 5 as far as like building decks, because you have to go out of your way to like really build a very powerful deck, and most of the time you ain't it. I ain't it. I don't build CDH decks. I basically just net deck them and play them if I ever am in that situation. I probably could build something decent, but I've never been like an amazing deck builder as far as like I've never really delved into CDH deck building, I guess. I'm a fairly good bracket 4 deck builder. That's I would say every single one of my decks are bracket 4. Yeah, so it's about shuffling up your strong, fully optimized deck, whatever it may be, and see how it fares. For most commander players, these are high-power commander decks you will interact with. So then in CDH bracket 5, this is a high-power with very competitive and metagame-focused mindset. Mindset is a key part of the description, like I mentioned. It's really just how you'll define your deck based on if you've went and net decked your deck off of a tournament page, you're a CDH player. That makes sense. Much of this is how you approach the format in the deck building. It's not just a no holds bar where your most powerful you play your most powerful card. Yeah, where you play your most powerful cards in a bracket 4. It requires careful planning. There is care paid into the following and paying attention to a metagame and a tournament structure, and no sacrifices are made to build in deck building as you try to be the one to win the pod. Yeah, so they're like, no, there's no budget restrictions. It's like literally just like thousands of dollars of lands. I mean, you've got every possible way to try to combo out on turns 1, 2, or 3. I mean, I think they could probably do a better job at like, you know, describing the difference between the two, just based on the things that I've said looking over this article. But I think it makes sense just to kind of just broadly generalize CDH as it's kind of its own bracket, even outside of the bracket system. It's kind of like a all-encompassing, like I said, the mindset of how you build the deck. 99% of the players won't be building CDH decks, so it doesn't make sense to like spend a lot of time talking about it. It's really a 4 bracket system, in my opinion, because of that. So additionally, there is a special care and attention paid to behavior in tableside negotiations, such as not making spite plays or concessions that play into the tournament structure. Yeah, so a lot of times, like they'll even like standard play, you could do like drawing to the top 8, stuff like that, talking about like players can like intentionally draw in order to get higher in the tournament system. That makes more sense in like a CDH bracket. You'll never do that in a normal game, because there's no progression in you're not in a bracket, like you're not like playing a tournament, so none of that makes sense. So some people might spike play and they'll lose the game on purpose because they don't give a crap. That kind of behavior typically won't happen in CDH tournaments. So CDH, or competitive commander, and similar names, is where winning matters more than self-expression. You might not be playing your favorite commander cards or commanders, as pet cards usually are replaced with the much needed meta, but you're playing what you think it will most likely win. Yeah, that all makes sense to me. Again, it's more of just a mindset of how you're playing the game. Really kind of all of the brackets are that way. So yeah, I think that just adding in at the end of the underneath CDH, attempting to win consistently on turns 1, 2, and 3 would really kind of differentiate bracket 4 and 5 a little bit better for people. So the Game Changers list. This is kind of like a the way I see this list, honestly, is I kind of see this as like a watch ban list. That's not probably what it is, but it could be. So what is the Game Changers list? Or even actually a potential unbanning of list. That's kind of what they mentioned in the article, so we'll see. So Game Changers list, you saw several mentions of this list above. This is something that new that we want to introduce. We think of it will be a huge help for matchmaking, understanding the format. Game Changers dramatically warp Commander games, allowing players to run away with resources, shift games in ways that many players dislike, block people from play, efficiently search for their strongest cards, or have commanders that take away from more casual games. And unlike some previous systems that were discussed, it's only a single additional list to track. It's basically a kind of secondary ban list for at least the brackets of like 1, 2, either 1, 2, or 3, or a limited list, or at the very least. In addition to that function, you can imagine that this is sort of a watch list. Oh yeah, see, they even go through it. Any future bans are likely to come from this list, save for maybe something that shows up in a new set and immediately causes problems, like Nadu. Similarly, unbanned cards are likely to end up here as well. This creates a nice half step between the banned list and showing up everywhere. Showing up everywhere. It also really helps ensure that you know what card we have our eyes on, so you won't feel like they're being banned out of nowhere. I like this idea. Very nice. The One Ring better be on this list. And if it is, be careful. You might want to offload them if they're getting high up there. Although I think they dip down in price a little bit. They might continue to dip. It also gives us a tool to unban cards, to try to them or nudge them around without a ban needed. If a card shows up and is frustrating at a casual tables but fine for competitive play, we can add it to the Game Changers list in an update to get it to the right place. And similarly, if times or opinions change and a card on this list looks fine in casual play now, we can take it off. It's not like how Canadian Highlander adjusts point values every now and then. It's not unlike. Now, to be clear, most of the cards are unlikely to be banned. You shouldn't go trading away your guys' cradles and unconcerned. Did I say unbanned? Are unlikely to be banned. However, it is a clear signal for players to know that these cards indicate a different kind of play and that others might prefer not to play against them. We'll discuss a list. We all discussed a lot of what we felt like should be on this list, making it useful but manageable. And they've ended up at exactly 40 cards, which is kind of crazy to me. Some of these cards are interesting. So the number being round is just a coincidence. This list doesn't always have to be 40 cards. Here's initial Game Changers list. All right, for white, everything makes sense here except for Trouble in Pairs. Is it just me, or is Trouble in Pairs like not that powerful of a card? Like it's fine. It's nowhere near the power level of Smothering Ties, in my opinion. But yeah, Drannith Magistrate, Enlightened Tutor, Serra Sanctum, all of those make sense. Drannith Magistrate prevents commanders from being played. Enlightened Tutor is a very good tutor. Especially, it's very specifically good for getting like combo pieces typically. Serra Sanctum, I believe, is the one that taps for mana for every enchantment you have, so it's like the enchantment version of a Gaia's Cradle. Similar Ties gives you tons of treasures. It makes sense. Trouble in Pairs, that's like the one where like players have to skip their extra turns if they start them, and then every time somebody does a second thing of something, like attacks with 2 creatures, draws 2 cards, or plays 2 spells, you get to draw a card, I believe. I recently just put this in one of my decks, my Ketchermosa deck, because I was like, people kept talking about how busted it was. We'll see. I don't know. In my opinion, it's a strong card, but not like, I don't know. I don't think it's a game changer in my opinion, but I guess we'll see. Cyclonic Rift, it bounces everything. It makes sense. That's a very powerful card. It's a one-sided board wipe. I think one-sided board wipes do make sense to be on here. Expropriate, I think, is the one where you either take extra turns or you take one of whatever you want from somebody. Force of Will, it's a free counter spell. Same thing with Fierce Guardianship. Heuristic Study is a very powerful draw engine. Are you going to pay the 1? Thassa's Oracle, instant win con, makes sense. Urza, Lord High Artificer, very powerful commander that just turns all your mana rocks into, or all your artifacts into mana rocks. Mystical Tutor, I don't know if Mystical Tutor is a game changer. All it does is get an instant or sorcery. It's probably Blue's best tutor for what it wants, I guess. But it's interesting. Mystical Tutor is interesting. I wouldn't necessarily consider it a game changer, but I guess they just want like it's specified tutors, I guess, is important. Jin-Kataxis Core Augur, that's the one that reduces everybody's hand size to 0, and then I think you get to draw 7 cards at your end step. I think that's a pretty good game changer. Anytime I've ever played Jin-Kataxis, it's definitely been, they either need to remove it or the game's over, so it makes sense. In black, Bolas' Citadel, I think Bolas' Citadel gets more flack because in CDH, it's like a more powerful card, especially when a deck's built around it. I don't know that it's that powerful in commander. I've definitely played it, and it's been a very powerful card. But I don't actually know if it's a game changer. I guess if you specifically build around it, it can be super powerful, but something in like a Keurig deck. Demonic Tutor makes sense, very powerful. Same thing with Imperial Seal and Vampiric Tutor. Those are all very powerful tutors. Opposition Agent is a very salty card. People don't like when you like take over their searching, and even like when you can take somebody's fetch land. That could really remove... I think it's a game changer, and it could be, so it makes sense. Turgid, I've actually never played against this commander. It's the one that whenever somebody like sacrifices something, you get it instead of it going to the graveyard or exile or whatever. So yeah, I guess the way the deck is built, it makes sense that it's a game changer. Probably only as a commander. I don't know if it would be a game changer as a non-commander, but Ad Nauseam, this is the one where you get to reveal cards from the top of your library and lose life equal to the mana value. It's definitely is like a tutor. It's like a very good draw engine. In my opinion, it's like on a whole nother level than Bolas's Citadel. So it makes sense to be on here. In red, you got Jessica's Will. That makes sense. Very powerful card that gives you a lot of card draw. Well, exiles the cards, but you can play them from exile for that turn. And then a lot of mana, red mana, equal to the cards that somebody has. Target opponent. So yeah, a very powerful 3 mana spell. Very powerful. Underworld Breach is another one. It's a CDH staple. Very powerful card that allows you to get stuff back from your graveyard or recast stuff back from your graveyard with that. I think it's an escape. I don't know. Removing 3 cards. So yeah, it makes sense. Definitely a game changer. Typically, when you play an Underworld Breach, you're probably going to try to win the game because it only lasts 1 turn anyways. Survival of the Fittest. I had to look this card up. I remember I know what it is. Like in my head, I'm like, it sounds familiar, but I don't know if I've ever played it. But it's a green enchantment that you pay a green, you discard a creature card, and then you get to go tutor a creature card. So it makes sense. It's green's tutor. I'm surprised Worldly Tutor is not. I think Worldly Tutor in my head is used way more than Survival of the Fittest, but I could be wrong. Maybe Worldly Tutor should be on here instead of Survival of the Fittest. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Vorn collects Voice of Hunger. I think this is the token doubling guy or the counter doubling guy, and then it reduces the counters on your opponents and tokens and counters. I don't 100% know that. But I'm fairly certain that's the one. Gaia's Cradle, that's the one that taps green for all your mana. Those make sense. Vorn collects. I've definitely experienced some salt received from playing it. I think I've had it in one of my decks. But it's not a card that I've like ever seen create too much problem, so it's a little weird to be on here, to be honest. Multicolored card, Kinnan, CDH staples. So same thing with Yuriko and Winota. All 3 of those are like CDH staples. They're like very powerful commanders. I'm a little surprised something like Animar's not on here. I've played an Animar deck. There are many ways to build Animar. It's very powerful. He's probably a game changer more than, I don't know, maybe Winota. I've never played Winota. I actually don't know. But yeah, Kinnan makes tons of infinite combinations with mana rocks. It makes your mana rocks I think it's non-land permanents tap for more mana. So there's a lot of infinite combos that can go with that. So that makes sense. Definitely a game changer. Kinnan is a very powerful card, and Simic, very powerful colors. Yuriko, I've seen Yuriko games. I've never played against a Yuriko, and I've never played Yuriko, but it's like the ninjutsu commander, which seems pretty overpowered, where you could just ninjutsu it into play and just never pay commander tax. That seems pretty good. And then also, I think it's the one that like you reveal the top card of your library and everybody takes damage equal to its CMC. So I guess that makes sense as a game changer. I'm wondering if it's a game changer more because it avoids the commander tax and it's like fairly consistent. Hard to get rid of. Makes sense, I guess. Winota, like I said, it's like the 5-color commander that attacks and it makes humans and then you do something. I don't remember if that's the one like you reveal cards from the top of your library and then you get on a human or something like that. I know it's a very powerful deck and it typically wins via combat, like infinite combats. Grand Arbiter of Augustin, I understand this card. I wouldn't even mind if this card gets banned, to be honest. This is the one that makes your white and blue spells cheaper, and it makes all of your opponent's spells cost 1 more. It's such a small thing, but like, man, it really taxes. I don't like tax. It feels bad. Pay your taxes in real life, but in game, ugh, get it out of here. Colorless, Ancient Tomb makes sense. Taps for 2 colorless, and it just does 2 damage. But when you start with 40 life, it typically doesn't matter. It can, but it doesn't always matter. Crumb Mox, it's a free artifact that I believe that's the one where you have to remove a card from your hand to tap it for a color. Don't quote me on that. I actually don't ever use Chrome Mox. I think I finally just put it into a deck recently. Probably the Catcher Mosa deck. The One Ring, yeah. So I could foresee the One Ring being actually just straight up banned. It's just it fits the criteria to be banned. It fits in every single deck, and it just gives you so much value with like almost no downside. The life loss is like minuscule. It being indestructible is crazy. Yeah, I don't know. It goes in every single one of my decks besides a 1. So I think I have 15 or 16 commander decks built right now. Tabernacle of Pendrel Vale. I don't know that let's see, Tabernacle. I actually don't even know what this is, to be completely honest. So we'll just talk about, it's a land if I remember correctly. But I couldn't even tell you what it does. Trinisphere, this is the one that I think that makes everything cost 3 if it's below 3. So it's like a taxing effect. That makes sense. My assumption is, as far as game changers are concerned, you can just take Trinisphere and all the other like Blood Moon type effects, all the like the taxing, those are probably all kind of encompassed in Trinisphere. They're not on this list necessarily, but they could be. Grim Monolith, yeah, this is the infinite combination with Kinnan. You can pay 3 mana or task for 3 mana, then you can pay 3 mana to untap it. With Kinnan, you get an extra mana, so you have infinite colorless. Lion's Eye Diamond, this is where you have to exile, I believe, a land from your hand, and then it can, it's a free artifact that comes in for mana. But I think they're kind of just putting in, like, colorless, we'll just kind of, like, encompass all of them into free mana rocks that are basically like an extra land drop for free, but they're artifacts. Same thing with Mox Diamond. Lion's Eye Diamond, this is another CDH staple that really is super powerful. It just enables so much of the gameplay loops. So you have to. It's a free artifact that you crack, gain 3 mana of any color, of any one color, but you have to discard your hand. In the decks that use it, they don't care about their discarding of their hand because they're playing Underworld Breach typically. And then you're able to like Underworld Breach, brings Lion's Eye Diamond back to get mana, and then keep doing this cycle, and then easy game. Mana Vault's another mana rock. I think. A lot of people probably thought that like Soul Ring would be on here, and there's a place in the article that talks about why Soul Ring's not. It seems to be like it's the one that doesn't get the ban. It'll never be banned, and it probably will never be on any list. It's just kind of the staple. I don't know. They'll explain it. Glacial Chasm. Oh yeah, Mana Vault test for 3 mana, and I think you have to pay 3 mana or 4 mana to untap it, and then if you don't, you take a damage. But it just allows for a very expeditious gameplay, and then also if you have ways to untap it without paying the mana, then it becomes much more powerful. Something like the keys. That Voltaic Key, I think, is one untapped target artifact. Glacial Chasm, that's a land that enters the battlefield and you take no damage. You can still lose by loss of life, but you take no damage, but you have to pay upkeep of sacrificing a land. Or maybe it's 2 life, something like that. Or maybe it's both. When it enters the battlefield, maybe you have to sacrifice a land, something like that. Very powerful land card. It makes it so it's hard to lose the game. And some decks, a lot of decks, they don't run land destruction because that's kind of like taboo. So when you have a land that can just like make you not lose the game, it makes it kind of like a little lame. I don't like Glacial. I think Glacial Chasm should be banned, but that's mainly because of, like I said, that it's kind of taboo to run land destruction. So if you do run land destruction, people like think that they get really salty about it. But if you don't run it, then you just get destroyed by Glacial Chasm. So I think it should be banned. Then they go, quick recap. Upcoming. We want to leave you all with a better understanding of what we're doing next and and about when it will happen. That way you can better anticipate updates, so we're going to leave you with a transparent look behind the curtain. The first step is for you to try it. They want you to do some playtesting, go to MagicCon Chicago, do some playtesting in the area, and then depending on how it goes, we'll have more information. They want to take feedback. There's a Discord to join in this article. I can leave a description or I can leave a link down in the description to the article, and then you can join from there. If you want to join the Discord and give their feedback. I think there's probably a special space, special section for giving feedback. Provided the system generally works and is heading in the right direction, we'll begin making revisions soon after MagicCon for any structural changes we want to include. Then, with the information of with all that kept in mind, we'll begin discussing any potential unbans with the Game Changers list as a tool. We could potentially unban cards and add them to the list to keep them available at higher brackets while keeping them out of the lower ones. The goal here, provided the system works, will be to come back with one big article in late April that will both roll out the full system and any unbans altogether. And as we said back in October, no bans will be happening at that time, just potentially some unbans. So if you're eager to hear about unbans, late April is the date to circle your calendar. Late April, so that's not too far away, a couple months. If anything changes in the timeline, we'll let you know. The schedule is, of course, contingent on the system directionally working. So yeah, beta test, it makes sense. Once we're through with that, we'll be working on a regular cadence for updates. I wonder what the regular cadence will be. Every couple months, every 6 months. Commander moves at like a slower pace, I think. So I think probably every 6 months to a year is a good timeline of like when they could maybe make adjustments. Welcome to the beta. Thanks for taking time to check this out, and thank you all for your patience. They just talk about stuff. I don't think any of this really matters. We've had a lot of great discussion talking about it. They're excited to check it out. Yeah, official Discord there. You can join there or at the top. They'll be in Chicago. This is the people on the format panel. So the Q&A, this is useful information. I don't like this. Do I have to use it? No. You don't have to use it at all. So Game Changers. There's some cards here. So I've kind of already went over like what I think are them. But I'm curious to know why they think... Actually, we can look at Tabernacle. All creatures now require an upkeep. Oh, that's that one. I've never played against this card in my life, but I could actually see this card being super salty. Surprised it's not banned. But yeah, you have to pay extra mana for your creatures. But yeah, I've never played against this card, so... does it have like a... If the unkeep cost pay for... So this is just straight up always out there. Wow. How is this card not banned? This card is so bad to play against. If it would be different, like Glacial Chasms is a little bit a better of an example of a card that I'm like more okay with because it has a cumulative upkeep, and when it enters the battlefield, you have to sacrifice a land. Tabernacle has no downside for you, besides you having to pay the extra cost as well. But if you're playing like a Planeswalker deck, there's no reason why you shouldn't play Tabernacle besides your friends hating you. I don't know. Alright, so I want to see Trouble in Pairs. I want to see what their idea was. Okay, so Trouble in Pairs is under the Smothering Ties. These provide overwhelming resource advantage for their mana value and tend to cause a player to snowball with the game. I've never played it, so I guess I don't know. I'll I guess let you know how I think Trouble in Pairs, but this is the card that we're talking about here. So if opponent would skip an extra turn, or play an extra turn, they skip it, and then whenever opponent attacks with 2 creatures, draws their second card, or casts a second spell, you draw a card. Yes, I mean, I don't know, it just... At most, you'll draw 3 cards a turn. Ristic Study blows this away, and it's cheaper, and it's easier to cast. I don't know. Like, I think the card's good, or okay. Good to okay. Oh, Vorinclex. So is it the guy... Oh, this is the extra mana one. This is not the Vorinclex I was thinking of. So whenever you tap land for a mana, you get 2, and then your opponents get no untaps. That makes sense. So it's messing with your opponent's lands. They're not going to like that. That makes sense. The tutors make sense. I think I understand, like, these are all like kind of stacks pieces or like ways to lock out your opponents, so all of that makes sense. Yeah, Seraph Sanctum enchantment. So these are very powerful lands that provide a ton of mana. Best in class way to destroy your friendship. Thassa's Oracle. Same thing with Cyclonic Rift, probably. Cool looking card though. Expropriate, yeah, There's ways to also take infinite turns depending on the... Oh no, you exile it. Never mind, take it back. Yeah, Jinkataxis, yeah, no maximum hand size. Yeah. Basically, the problem with this is that the moment it hits the field, you're drawing 7, and then your opponents, if they don't have a removal right away, their game's over. They like their entire hand's down to 0. They have to discard their entire hand. It definitely is a very game-changing card, so I can understand that being on the list. Yeah, so these legendary creatures, I'm guessing they're talking about trying to keep them out of brackets 1 and 2. Additionally, your commander is the only thing, the one thing you know before playing the game, so it gives you an easy way to say, hey, I don't want to play against that commander. After a lot of discussion, we felt that these 6 were almost never used fairly when played as a commander. I've actually never seen Grand Arbiter used as a commander. It makes sense, but I've just never played against it or seen it. A lot of discussion. We feel like these 6 were almost never used. I've never seen the fun, enjoyable. Wait, I've never seen the fun, enjoyable for everybody Grand Arbiter deck out there in a while. True. Yeah, nobody's ever like, look, the problem with Grand Arbiter is that you're not just playing this as your commander and then playing like an advisor deck or a human deck. It's like this and then like every other stacks piece known to man. Every other like painful card. Like, yeah, this is not gonna be a fun deck to play against almost ever. So why isn't Soul Ring? So we talked about this. You are correct as Soul that it qualifies as fast mana and would otherwise be there next to cards like Mana Vault. The truth is, it's Soul Ring. It's the most iconic card in all of Commander. It's something that since near the beginning has been the poster child for the format. Playing one Soul Ring is a universal truth handed down from Sheldon Menery. Every deck gets exactly one Soul Ring to let it power up and accelerate a bit extra on occasion. That remains true. I agree. I think it's fine. I think Soul Ring, you know what's great about it? I love it. My buddy, he just started playing Soul Ring in his decks. He was against the Soul Ring wagon. He was like, he's like, I'm not running Soul Ring, it's busted. And he finally added it. He's come to the dark side. Embrace it. Card deck should be on the ban list. Why isn't it? We talked about a ton of cards. Send us your feedback. We'll take it into account. Yeah, in the Discord, I think you should be able to send the feedback there. Or if you're in MagicCon Chicago. What does it mean if my commander's on the ban list or the game changers list? That just means that if you can only be on bracket 3 and it counts as one of your 3. Makes sense? Why are there 5 brackets? Doesn't it kind of boil down into 3? I think it more boils down into 4, but let's see what they say. It's true there are essentially 3 categories: no game changers, some game changers, and all game changers. We looked at 3 brackets for a while, but a couple things became apparent. First, there's an audience that would really like to play Commander game below the level of pre-constructed decks, and I personally think it's a great level that exists. I've actually never come across these players, I don't think. Like, pre-cons are pretty low power. Some of them have high power, but like, if you've ever played like the pre-con vampire deck, it's pretty freaking bad. So, I don't know. Anyways, but I guess there are people that like that. I think Pauper could be maybe in this category, but there's some powerful Pauper decks too, so I don't know. I've never built a purely goofy deck in my life, but now that I know that I have the terminology to find those exhibition matches in bracket 1, I feel a lot more likely to build some. I guess you could like, I guess that's true. If like you have like a really goofy idea and you want to build like a funky bracket 1 deck that's like really bad, but it could be funny, I guess sure, it doesn't hurt. At the end of the spectrum, in talking with our CDH experts like Deco, Lua, Stardust, and Rebel, they really felt like there's a difference between high power and CDH worth quantifying. Additionally, a great point that was brought up was that CDH already has done exactly what we're trying to do here, with a label that indicates the kind of game you're looking for. They have earned that officially labeling by virtue of it proving to have worked. Yeah, I agree. I really do. I think that your deck really has to... You'll know if it's a CDH deck based on how you've built the deck. I just feel like 99% of players will not build a CDH deck on accident. It's just not going to happen. It is what it is. We do expect a lot of commander decks to fall into the core upgraded and optimized brackets 2, 3, and 4, and that's totally okay. But having the room for Expedition CDH is something we felt important, and this is if this is successful, the categories, especially Expedition, may grow over time. True, I could see like things being like not content. What is the word? Like Pauper, I could see like bracket 1 decks being a thing that is like something you could like build around as like it's like the opposite of CDH, I guess. That could be interesting. My deck has no game changers and is technically a bracket 2. Should I play it there? You should play where you think you belong based on the descriptions. For example, if your deck has no holds barred power despite playing 0 game changers, then you should play it at bracket 4. Yeah, see, this is where the ambiguity comes into play, where like there's still going to be some discussions. There's maybe not enough definitive things. Bob and I were talking in our chat, and we have some disagreements on like he thinks that it's nowhere near descriptive enough. I think it's a good start, and I think it covers a lot of the bases that we need to cover. He thinks there's no definition between brackets 4 and 5. I think there is a clear definition between them, but again, that's the kind of situation you're going to run into in the wild as well, is that I think I can build a technically bracket 1 commander deck, and I bet you it'll be very powerful. Now, me knowing that it's a bracket 4, I could say it's a bracket 1, and it'll become apparent. Again, bad actor. That would be a bad actor. You should know your power level of your deck, at least by you know, you can see how it performs. If it's blowing everybody away, you know it's a higher power level. Then of course just apologize and say, my bad, I thought this was a power level 1. We can, you know, maybe play it, shuffle up and play it different decks or something. All right, why 3 cards from the Game Changers list for bracket 3? We talked a lot about the decks we had, but what we expected and what we felt was right about your deck, and have some of these cards show up and not be full of them. We talked about 3, 4, 5, and while 5 doesn't sound like a lot, when the list is only around 40 cards, that's a lot. I kind of see what they're going for, but like at the same time, the decks don't ultimately all share the cards. Like they're because Commander is a color-centric format, the only ones that really matters is like all the colorless cards. 3 is probably a little too restrictive, but at the same time, it's bracket 3. It's fine. We naturally expect people to talk about how many Game Changers are in their decks. So if someone says, "Hey, I have N Game Changers in my deck," is that okay? You can decide if that's something you're happy with. Yeah, I mean, ultimately at the same, you could say like, "Listen, my deck is a bracket 3. I do have more of the Game Changers that they say, but I promise you, it's one of those it's one of those same situations that we had with yeah, my deck's a 7. It might not be. But again, this isn't, nothing's definitive here. Nothing's going to cover everything. This is just a guideline. So, you know, it's up to interpretation, I guess. However, I should be able to label my deck correctly and finding my exact bracket to play with. There's some wiggle room. And while playing against decks that are all inside your bracket is ideal, you can also wiggle within one bracket from you safely. Brackets 2, playing against bracket 3 can work fine, but this is a system that we're really trying to avoid is bracket 2 playing with bracket 4. That makes sense. Like they're kind of like closer in power level, and the further you go apart, it'll be like trying to play a CDH deck, or trying to play in a CDH like tournament or pod when you only have a bracket 1 deck is probably not going to end well. Again, you can build very powerful bracket 1 decks, I think, but it's not going to be anywhere near CDH. So how can I use this system practically? One thing I'm really excited about is just being able to put decks from bracket 1 through 4 in my bag and having 4 to play. That's an interesting thing. Like if you're going to like a card shop or going to a convention, you could be like, I've got 4 different decks, one of each bracket, or 5, and then having be like, I've got 1 deck for every bracket. What do you guys want to play? And then it can kind of be a simple way of like picking decks, I guess. Above all, the Commander bracket system is meant to provide players with a greater terminology. Even being able to say something like, my deck has 5 Game Changers, is that cool? Gives you more agency to when finding good games. I don't think there's enough cards on the Game Changers list to really define that, but I can understand that like if the list gets too long, then it becomes another problem where like trying to remember what's on the list. 40 cards, I don't know that I could label all 40 of them, but I feel like I could probably, because I've looked over it recently, I could probably have a general idea of all of them. Why is chaining extra turns spells called out specifically? I don't even have to read what they say. It's basically because chaining extra turns makes so you're playing a solo game and nobody enjoys that. It's pretty simple. Yeah, see? Don't even have to read it to know. What if my deck accidentally has a combo or finds a way? They talk about it's just all about intention. What's your intent? I feel like that's like the same kind of situation as like the CDH versus bracket 4 or bracket 4 versus bracket 5. What's your intent when you build your deck? That's what kind of defines your bracket 4 or bracket 5. If your intent is to go to a CDH tournament listing and copy paste the deck that just won the most recent CDH tournament, it's a CDH deck. You're not going to build a CDH deck on accident. It's almost never going to happen. I'm sorry. It's just not. It's like less than 1% of players will accidentally build a CDH deck. It can still be a very powerful deck, but CDH it is a different kind of animal. You need tons of interaction, tons of ways to combo. Like it's different, which is fine. Is this the same power level system that you announced last year? Yeah, I don't know why that's there. You didn't really talk about mana bases at all. Is there guidance for that? Well, mana is of course critical for Magic. It's a rare that a mana base. Yeah, I don't see why this would matter. I think some players they think that like having a bunch of fetch lands in your deck changes your power level of your deck. I would say it probably doesn't much at all. Budget wise it would, but a lot of times people are like playing proxies anyways, so like I proxy almost every one of my decks. Actually, I think every one of them is proxy besides like some like niche deck that I have that I don't remember. Actually, I have this this like the commander, this vampire deck. That one. I have that one as a precon deck for when we play commander raids. Some game changers have shown up in a recent pre-constructed decks like Jessica's Will. However, the pre-constructed level core, that's an interesting one. How will this influence future pre? So it's true that bracket 2 is the average modern pre-constructed level, but the emphasis is on average. See, that's the thing. So like, yeah, so there's going to be powerful commander decks that are created on the niche products, or the like Modern Horizons 3 had like very powerful commanders. Same thing with like Fallout and Warhammer 40k. I don't think those are like those are like normal precon levels. They're gonna have much powerful cards. They're gonna be much stronger. They're probably bracket level 3, to be honest. They're not the same. They don't follow the same. Like this vampire deck's like a, I don't even know if I'd consider it a 2, to be honest. But I'd have to look at the deck list again. Will you intentionally begin designating cards to go straight to the Game Changers list? No. At Wizards, we don't see this as a tool to create even more powerful cards for Commander or anything of the sort. It's something to help matchmaking, not to give us an excuse to push the envelope. Yeah, that would be very strange to like at the very least to advertise like, hello folks, we got our CDH bracket level card coming at you. Like, I don't know, that'd be strange. Not to say that they don't. They probably have some idea. I don't know. They've got their philosophies of how they build the sets. So I don't know. I think they've done a great job. So I'm happy with whatever they do. Is there a way for the online tools I use to easily tell me what bracket my deck is? That's interesting. I really do hope. Okay, so let's read this. This is something we want to roll out and get adopted into many community tools people use. It's important that the community format involves great community resources after all. We've gone ahead and given the popular deck building websites Architect and Moxfield, as well as the popular Magic search engine Scryfall, a heads up on the entire system. You should begin. See, that's very important. This right here is actually critical, I think. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be a very, very powerful tool to use and just be like, my deck is definitely like, here's my Moxfield list. It's a bracket 4. It's a bracket 3. I don't know how they're going to exactly do it. I know that you could definitely do the game changers. You could track that very easily. That makes sense. There's only 40 cards. Have them tagged as bracket changer, and then your bracket can change based on how many game changers you have in there. That makes sense. I don't know about anything else. How would you even dictate anything else via programming? I don't know. I play on Magic Online. Can this help me on there as well? Daybreak Games and their Magic Online team are aware and working on a potential implementation of this. Stay tuned. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. They should really be beta testing this in person first, and then once the system's like actually it doesn't make sense to waste a bunch of development time on a program until the system's more put together. So yeah, in the Commander channel, in the Discord, make sure to give your feedback there. Overall, this is actually better than I thought it would be. I was a little bit pessimistic on the bracket system, but I actually do think this has a lot of potential. I think that with community feedback and the fine folks at Wizards, I think that this could be pretty good. Yeah, overall, I don't know. It's interesting. Again, this changes nothing for me. Like our game, almost none of my games use any kind of power level system. Anytime I do a public game, I typically ask how sweaty do we want to be, and people kind of like give me an idea. This does add more, like they said, it adds more terminology to it, so this does make more sense. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, everybody, and make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share the video with your friends, and it helps with the YouTube algorithm to push stuff like this. So thanks for watching.